Get your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.
Invoices in QuickBooks Online use either a simplified new layout or an old layout. As of the time of this writing, Intuit is still rolling out the new layout. Also, if it is available, changing certain sales settings may require you to use the old layout instead. If this is the case, you will see that warning appear when you change the related sales setting. For example, enabling a deposit field in Invoices also forces the use of the old layout. However, many of the invoicing features remain the same between invoice layouts, although you customize them differently. To switch between layouts if available, click either the old layout or try the new Invoices button in the toolbar towards the upper right corner of the invoice window. To create a customer invoice, either click the Create Invoice command under the Action column for the Customers row in the Customers page, or click the plus new button in the navigation bar, and then click the Invoice link under the Customers heading in the drop-down menu that appears. In the invoice window that then opens, enter the information needed to invoice the customer. To choose a customer, select one from the Customer drop-down in the upper left corner of the window. If selecting an existing customer's record, their information then populates other fields in the form based on what you entered when you created the customer's record. Alternatively, you can type a customer's name or select the Add New choice from this dropdown to quickly add a new customer. If using the old layout, then to the right of the customer dropdown is a customer email field. This field is populated with the customer's email address if you entered it when creating the customer's record. You can enter an email here if you didn't enter it when you created the customer or if adding a customer on the fly. To inspect the customer data if using the new layout, click the Edit Customer link below the Customer dropdown. To open the Customer pane at the right side of the window, where you can check and change this information as needed, and then save it. To email copies of this invoice to others if using the old layout, then click the CC/BCC link by the email field to show additional CC and BCC fields in a drop-down menu. Then enter the email addresses into these fields as needed, and then click the Done button. To email copies if using the new layout, wait until you finish the invoice, and then click the Review and Send button in the lower right corner. In the window that appears, then click the CC/BCC link by the To field to show the additional field where you can then enter these email addresses. To mark the invoice as an invoice to save but email later if using the old layout, check the Send Later checkbox below the email field. Later you can email these invoices as a batch action from the All Sales page if desired. If you already enabled online payments for invoices in QuickBooks Online and are using the old layout, check the Cards and/or Bank Transfer checkboxes under the Online Payments label to the right as needed to enable the respective online payment method. If using the new layout, click the Edit link next to the Customer Payment Options label below the line item area instead. Note that you must first have online payments enabled through QuickBooks Online before you can use these. If interested in enabling online payment in QuickBooks Online, you can click the adjacent Sign Up for Payments link if using the old layout, or the Setup link if using the new layout, to set up payments through QuickBooks Online. The billing address or bill to field is populated with the customer's address. If using the old layout, you can enter or change their billing address for the invoice here. To the right, the customer's default terms appear in the Terms dropdown, and you can change this if needed. The Invoice Date field shows the current date by default. If needed, you can click this field to select another date from the Calendar dropdown that appears. The Due Date field is calculated based on the selected terms you chose. However, you can also click into this field to select a date if needed. If you enabled shipping and used the old layout, then enter the shipping information into the Shipping To, Ship Via, Shipping Date, and Tracking Number fields that appear as needed. The Shipping To field shows the customer's default shipping address if you entered that when you created the selected customer's record. If using automatic sales tax calculations, the invoice's sales tax are calculated based on this address, and if empty, the location of sale field's value is used instead. Alternatively, if using the new layout, the customer's shipping address information appears in the Ship To field. Like the Bill To field, it is not directly editable in the new layout. To edit customer information using the new layout, you must click the Edit Customer link, change the data in the customer pane that appears, and then save it. If you enabled custom fields and are using the old layout, then enter any custom field data into those fields in the invoice if needed. Note that custom fields don't appear in the new layout for invoices and estimates as of the date of this writing. At the right side of the window, the Invoice Number field shows the next highest available invoice number. If you enabled custom transaction numbers in sales forms, then you can change this if needed. If you enabled location tracking and used the old layout, then a location dropdown also appears at the top of the invoice form. Likewise, if you enabled class tracking on a transaction level and used the old layout, then a class dropdown also appears here. Note that locations and classes are not yet available in the new layout as of the date of this writing. If using the old layout, the location of sale field shows your company's default sales address. You can change this if needed. To add a tag to this transaction if using the old layout, click into the Tags field and select a tag from the menu of tags. Repeat this as needed to apply tags from any tag groups you created. Alternatively, to add a new tag, type the tag's name, select it from the Add choice in the drop-down menu, and then follow the on-screen prompts to add it to a new tag group for reporting purposes. Note that this field doesn't appear in the new layout, and you must instead apply tags within the Tags page to invoices and estimates that use that layout, as shown at the end of the earlier lesson titled Creating and Using Tags. The next area is the Line Items area, where you enter the products and/or services to invoice. If you enabled service dates in sales forms, you can select the service date of services provided from the service date column or field. To select an existing item from the products and services list, click into the product/service column or field and then select the item from the drop-down menu. If SKUs are enabled, the item SKU appears in the SKU field. Its description appears in the description field. You can also type a description here if desired. Enter the quantity of the product bought or service provided by typing it into the quantity field labeled QTY. The rate for the product or service per quantity unit appears in the Rate field. You can also change it if needed. The Quantity field is multiplied by the Rate field to show the total amount for the line item in the Amount field. If entering a product or service without a rate or quantity, you can simply enter the total amount into the Amount field if needed. Also, note that the new layout contains another dropdown that lets you select unit, hour, or flat rate. If you select flat rate, the unit, hour, and quantity fields are removed for that line item, and you can then enter the flat amount into the amount field. If using the old layout, and if the product or service is taxable, ensure the tax field checkbox for the line item is checked. You can check or uncheck this if needed within this form. If using the new layout, you can only change the default sales tax status for a line item at the item level. To change the sales tax status of an item if needed and if using the new layout, click the three-dot menu at the line item's right end, and then select the Edit Sales Tax command to open a pane that lets you change the default sales tax for the item, and then click the Save button to apply it. If using the old layout, and if classes are enabled and assigned by one to each row in transaction forms, then you can select a class from the Class dropdown. After entering the first line item, continue adding line items until you enter all the line items needed for the invoice. At the left end of each line item row is a selection handle. To change the order of the line items, click and drag the line item up or down by this handle and then release it. To delete a line item, click the Delete button, which looks like a trash can icon, at the right end of the line item row to delete. To add a new line item row, click into the bottom line item row to automatically add a new row. If using the new layout, you can also click the Add Product or Service link to add a new blank line item. Alternatively, if using the old layout to add 4 new rows at once, click the Add Lines button under the line items area. To delete all line items, click the Clear All Lines button in this same location. To add a subtotal line item to an old layout invoice, select the line item row above where you want to insert the subtotal row. Then click the Add Subtotal button to add a subtotal line below the currently selected line. You can add as many subtotal lines as the invoice requires. To enter a message to show on the invoice, type it into the Message on Invoice field for the old layout or the Note to Customer field in the new layout. If using the old layout to enter a message that appears for this invoice in the customer's statement, type it into the Message on Statement field. To tell your customer how to pay you if using the new layout, type a payment message into the Tell Your Customers How You Want to Get Paid field. In the lower left corner of the invoice is the Attachments field, which lets you attach a file to the invoice. You can drag and drop files onto the field or click the field to open a File Upload dialog box that you can use to browse for and then select the file to attach. Note the 20 megabyte file attachment size limit. In the lower right corner of the invoice is the subtotal, taxable subtotal, sales tax, discount, shipping, and tax on shipping, total, deposit, and balance due field information, depending on which sales form features you enabled and which invoice layout you use. If using the old layout, then the Select Tax Rate dropdown lets you select either the default based on location choice if using the Automatic Sales Tax feature, or select a custom tax rate if you created those. Based on your selection, the sales tax to collect appears to the right. If using the automatic sales tax and the based on location choice, then you can click either the See the Math link or the Edit Tax link under the sales tax amount to see the sales tax information and calculations and correct it if needed in the pane that then opens at the right side of the window. We'll discuss this pane in detail in a later lesson in this chapter. For now, note that if you need to override the automatic sales tax calculation, you can click the Override this amount link in this pane's lower right corner to open a section at the bottom of the pane that lets you enter either a new rate or amount to charge for sales tax, and then select a reason from the dropdown. Then click the adjacent Confirm or Apply Override button to confirm the override. Alternatively, to apply a custom sales tax rate if you created one and are using the new layout, select the custom tax rate from the Sales Tax Rate dropdown at the very top of this pane. After editing the sales tax if needed, you can then close the pane by clicking the Close button in its lower right corner. Alternatively, to apply a custom sales tax rate if you created one and are using the old layout, select the custom sales tax rate from the Select Tax Rate dropdown. The amount of sales tax to collect then appears in a field to the right, which you can change if needed. To apply a discount to the invoice, if you enabled a discount field in your sales forms, use either the Discount dropdown that appears near the Select Tax Rate dropdown to select either the discount percent or discount value choice, or click the percent or dollar toggle switch if using the new layout. Then enter the percentage or amount into the adjacent field. The discount is related to sales tax because you can change whether the discount is applied before or after calculating sales tax in QuickBooks Online as needed. To change this if using the old layout, click the button that looks like up and down arrows in a blue circle to the left of the sales tax rate and discount fields to switch the order of the two fields in the invoice each time you click it. Doing this changes whether the discount is applied after sales tax is calculated or before sales tax is calculated, based on the order in which the fields appear in the invoice. Alternatively, if using the new layout, click the Manage button in the toolbar at the top of the window, if needed, to show a pane at the right side of the window. Then click the Payment Options link if needed to expand it. Then check or uncheck the Apply Discount After Sales Tax checkbox as needed. If shipping is enabled and you use the old layout, then you can enter the amount of shipping into the Shipping field. The Tax on Shipping field, if enabled, shows the sales tax on the shipping. If using the new layout, you may need to enable a Shipping Fee field before you can enter shipping fees and see the sales tax if needed. To enable the Shipping Fee field in the new layout, click the Manage button in the toolbar at the top of the window if needed to show a pane at the right side of the window. Then click the Payment Options link. Then toggle the Shipping Fee toggle switch to the On position. You can then enter the shipping amount into the shipping field in the invoice to add the shipping costs and, if applicable, and if using the automatic sales tax calculations, the shipping sales tax to the invoice. The Total or Invoice Total field shows the invoice total amount. If enabled and if using the old layout, to record an amount paid as a deposit at the time of invoicing, enter the amount into the Deposit field. The Balance Due field below that shows the remaining balance due less the deposit. The toolbar at the bottom of the invoice lists the actions you can perform on an invoice. Different options appear here when creating a new invoice versus opening an existing invoice. When creating a new invoice using the old layout, you will see Cancel and Clear buttons at the left side of the toolbar. Clicking Cancel cancels the invoice creation. Clicking Clear clears all the fields but keeps the window open. To cancel an invoice if using the new layout, click the X button in the upper right corner and then click Yes in the prompt to close without saving. In the middle of the toolbar when using the old layout are the Print or Preview, Make Recurring, and Customize buttons. Clicking the Print or Preview button shows a pop-up menu that lets you check a Print Later checkbox, or click either the Print or Preview or Print Packing Slip commands. Checking the Print Later checkbox lets you filter by that delivery method if you batch print invoices later. Clicking the Print or Preview command saves the invoice and opens a window that shows the invoice as a PDF and lets you preview or print it. Clicking the Print Packing Slip command saves the invoice and creates a packing slip from the invoice and shows it as a PDF so you can print it. Clicking the Make Recurring button in the old layout opens the Recurring Invoice window. Also note that you can create recurring invoices if using the new layout by clicking the Manage button in the toolbar at the top of the window if needed to show a pane at the right side of the window. Then click the Automation link. Then click the Recurring Invoice link to open the same Recurring Invoice window in the old layout style. This window lets you create a recurring invoice, which is discussed in a separate lesson. You can click the Cancel button in the toolbar to cancel the recurring invoice and close the window. Clicking the Customize command in the toolbar if using the old layout lets you select a different invoice template to use, edit the current invoice template, or create a new invoice template by selecting a command in the pop-up menu that appears. The new layout doesn't use templates, but you can customize its appearance by clicking the Manage button in the toolbar at the top of the window if needed to show a pane at the right side of the window. Then click the Design section to expand it. Then select a color and a font to use. Creating form templates, if using the old layout, is discussed in a separate lesson. Alternatively, if using the new layout, the middle of the toolbar contains an Other Actions link you can click to select either the Make a Copy command, which makes a copy of the invoice, or the Receive Payment command, which lets you receive payment on the invoice. We'll discuss receiving payment on an invoice in a later lesson. To save the invoice after creating it, click the Save button towards the right end of the toolbar. To save and send the invoice by email, click the Save and Send or Review and Send button at the right end of the toolbar. Alternatively, to save the invoice and then close the invoice or create another new invoice, click the drop-down on either the Save button if using the new layout, or the Save and Send button if using the old layout, and then click either the Save and Close or Save and New command. To save the invoice and send a link to the online invoice by email to the customer's email address, click the drop-down on the green button at the right end of the toolbar, and then select either the Save and Share Link command if using the old layout, or the Share Link command if using the new layout. The link also appears in a window on screen, so you can then copy the link to send to them via other channels if desired. You can then close the link window. Note that clicking the drop-down on the green button at the right end of the toolbar if using the new layout also shows options for Receive Payment and Print and Download. Selecting the Receive Payment command opens the Receive Payment window, which we'll discuss in a later lesson. Selecting the Print and Download link opens the invoice as a PDF in a new browser tab or window, so you can then use the buttons in the toolbar at the top of the PDF preview to print or download it as a PDF to manually send it to the customer if needed. You can then close that window. To open an invoice for editing after saving it, click it within the Invoices page to show information about it in a pane at the right side of the window. Then click the Edit Invoice button at the bottom of the pane to reopen it, or click the More Actions button to select from a full list of editing actions like delete, print packing slip, or void, among others. However, if you reopen the invoice for editing and are using the old layout, then a new More button also appears in the toolbar at the bottom of the invoice. Clicking this button shows other action commands for copy to copy the invoice, void to void the invoice, delete to delete the invoice, transaction journal to open a report that lists the accounts and credit and debit amounts for the invoice, and audit history, which shows an audit history of the invoice. You can click any of these actions to perform the related activity. Likewise, clicking the Other Actions button in the center of the toolbar if using the new layout and editing a saved invoice shows the new delete and void commands in addition to the other commands that previously appeared in this menu. You can select these commands to delete or void the invoice from within the invoice form if needed.
Like what you see? Pick up your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.